we get so caught up in like, should this be legal and this and that and the drugs and criminals. I mean, I know I sound like a hippie right now, but like that whole vibe, it pollutes like what this stuff really is. As we go over here, we look at the Colorado Proposition 122. And I bring this up because this is something that would never happen under Republicans, right? You can rip on Democrats, you can rip on liberals all you want. But when it comes to something like this, which is going to be huge and impactful, I believe, here in Colorado, I think that this would never happen in a red state. A red state will never lead the way in this kind of innovation. So we're going to listen to this like it's a really funny video. It's like, it's not funny. It's a couple minutes long, but it's kind of explaining Proposition 122, and it's read by these like really funny voice actors. So let's check this out. This is very much like Denver City Council video, but we'll check it out and see what they have to say.
Proposition 122, access to natural psychedelic substances. It's a citizen-initiated proposal. Among those substances are psilocybin mushrooms, also known as magic mushrooms. Proposition 122 would amend the state statutes in the following ways. By late 2024, allow the supervised use of psychedelic mushrooms by individuals aged 21 and over at licensed facilities and require the state to create a regulatory structure for the operation of these licensed facilities.
So here's what my first question that pops up is, what is it required to be licensed? What does that mean? How is that used? These are all real, and what does that regulatory body look like, and who's going to be on it? Who can be on it? These are all really important questions that I would have. But so far, it makes sense. People that, like for me and friends of mine that want to have their first experience, I know I can point people in the right direction, right? But for somebody who's just like, say a person like my mom, like, hey, maybe I want to work on some things, or I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z, just a normal ass person. For them going to a place and having supervision, a safe environment, professionals, that's huge. That's huge. And that increases access. On top of the fact that we can maybe do some programs that are paid for either by charity or by the state that work with people that have severe mental illness, maybe people that are homeless. Like, it would be really interesting to maybe help get people back into a more stable form of living. And I think that this is a great step in that direction.
It also allows the state to expand the types of substances that may be used in licensed facilities to include the use of additional plant-based psychedelic substances. Dimethyltryptamine.
So like plant-based would be, so you have DMT, ibogaine, ayahuasca, which ayahuasca is a chacruna plant and which is heavy in DMT, and then a 5-MeO inhibitor, or a MEO inhibitor in the actual ayahuasca vine. Of course, psilocybin mushrooms. That's going to leave out LSD. That's going to leave out ketamine. That's going to leave out MDMA, which those are all things I think that should be included in part of this. But then again, I think we can get, if we just stick to plant-based, it's a great place to start to show kind of some kind of larger scale results of a program like this. And I think Colorado in general has just led the way in a lot of this, and I think it's been really impressive.
Ibogaine or mescaline starting in 2026. Decriminalize the personal possession, growing, sharing, and use, but not the sale, of 5 natural psychedelic substances by individuals aged 21 and over. Allow local governments to regulate the time, place, and manner of operation of these facilities, while prohibiting local governments from banning licensed facilities, services, and use of natural psychedelic substances, and establish penalties for individuals under the age of 21 for possessing, using, or transporting natural psychedelic substances, and for individuals aged 21 and over who allow underage access to these substances.
Should be doing psychedelics if you're under 21. I believe that. I also feel that way about weed. You got kids out there that are under 21, actually under 25 really, that are using like neuro hacking compounds anyway. Whether that be Adderall or weed or mushrooms. I think that that's something you need to wait till you're in your 20s to do. I have a firm belief in that. I'm set in that. I didn't start doing this stuff till I was like, after I was 26, I think, when I did mushrooms for the first time. So there's no hurry. You got plenty of life to do this kind of stuff. And I think that's that 21-year-old, and that needs to be firm and enforced. Unless there's some kind of severe behavioral issue that may be treated with psychedelics on somebody who's younger, maybe over 16 to 21. In rare cases where it's the lesser of, it's either antipsychotics or psilocybin mushrooms. It's let's try psilocybin first. But then again, we got to keep that in mind. Those are kind of outlier cases, but generally speaking, 21 I think is an appropriate age.
Substances. Here then are the pros and cons for Proposition 122.
Proponents of Proposition 122 say the measure provides a potentially valuable tool for meeting the mental health needs of Coloradans. Studies have shown that psychedelic mushrooms and other plant-based psychedelic substances, combined with counseling, may provide effective treatment for severe depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The FDA has specifically found psychedelic mushrooms may offer substantial improvement in treating depression more successfully than existing therapies. Increasing access to psychedelic mushrooms and other plant-based psychedelic substances may help people who are struggling to find effective mental health treatment. Putting people in the criminal justice system for using naturally occurring substances that have potential mental health benefits does not benefit society and costs taxpayers money.
That's the conservative argument. It's not benefit society and it's expensive to put people in jail for having natural substances. Mushrooms are here. Hey man, if you believe, if you're religious, God put them here. You know what I mean? that's what you need to think. They here, man. And I think one thing that trips me out is that Christians don't embrace psychedelics. It really does trip me out. I'm like, dude, clearly psychedelics were used in the Bible. Clearly, it makes so much of that shit make so much more sense. And you guys are so scared of this because it's like, oh, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? If anything, you're going to have a clear understanding of your faith that may be conflicting with the popular belief, but that's okay. I think it's a more grounded. I mean, yeah, I've heard that so many times. Like it's just a different understanding of your faith that just is actually more individual and a little bit more pure. But hey, that's just me.
Possession and use of these substances are nonviolent offenses that do not pose a public safety risk. Studies have shown that psychedelic mushrooms are not addictive and that long-term adverse health impacts are rare, unlike tobacco use, which is legal. Individuals who are age 21 or older should be allowed to access these naturally occurring substances without fear of criminal penalties.
Opponents to Proposition 122 say there are currently no approved therapies that use psychedelic mushrooms or any other plant-based psychedelic substances, and the effects of them can vary widely from person to person depending on the dose, frequency of use, and type of substance.
Minus the approved part, literally every pharmaceutical drug as well varies widely to person. The effects vary widely. But hey, you know, you say that with SSRIs, you can say that with Adderall, all kinds of shit that we've just become accustomed to, right? And the fact that it's not approved, I don't understand who, approved by who, like we're figuring that out. Doesn't someone have the freedom to make that choice for themselves, whether or not they want to try something to see if it may help them or not?
Breakthrough therapy designation does not mean that the use of psychedelic mushrooms is safe or recommended. Further, DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline have not received a similar designation, and specifically ibogaine may cause life-threatening heart conditions.
Real talk, do not use ibogaine or iboga. Do not find that shit. I know it can be huge for addiction. Do not do that by yourself. Also, DMT. I've smoked DMT probably 40 times. Do not smoke DMT by yourself. Do not smoke 5-MeO DMT by yourself. Do not do ayahuasca by yourself. You understand me? Is everybody hearing me right now? This is not a fucking joke. If this shit's going to be around, you got to have a responsibility. Do not do that shit by yourself. You can die. You can choke on your own vomit. I know of 2 people who have lost limbs doing ibogaine by themselves because it incapacitates you and they lay on their fucking limbs till it cuts off circulation and they lose a leg or an arm. Okay? Real shit. Do not do mushrooms when you have to function. Like these are be a grown up with this shit. Like don't do mushrooms and drive. Don't do mushrooms if you're feeling like you might want to be suicidal or some crazy shit like that, right? Like if you need help, if you have that going on with you, go seek professionals and you'll be able to find that here. That's going to be a beautiful thing. But if you abuse this outside of that, you can be in a lot of trouble. It can be really bad for everybody, especially advocates of furthering the understanding and use of these really powerful substances that are just, they can be so beautiful, man. You just got to do it right. You got to do it right.
Proposing a regulatory framework for the use of these substances suggests that they offer legitimate treatment before they have received federal approval, potentially putting people's health and public safety at risk. Under the guise of healthcare, Proposition 122 legalizes drugs that have been illegal for over 50 years and forces local communities to allow use of these substances. It also provides broad protections for criminals by allowing convictions to be wiped from their records.
This is like the most
By
ridiculous argument
decriminalizing
ever.
personal use, the black market for these drugs may expand and provide access to youth or
No.
expose people to psychedelic substances that are tainted with other drugs. This may create additional burdens on local governments which, under the measure, have limited say on what is allowed in their communities.
So that's the pros. That's the arguments for and against in a very Denver City Council way of putting that together. So cute. That's adorable. Very quaint. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. I'm curious to see what's going to go. Something that I would even like be considered, you know, I would even consider if there was a process that said, hey, you could be a facilitator for psychedelic experiences and yada, 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 without being a therapist. Like, I would love that. If there was another pipeline, it took a year of learning, like, I would love that. Truth be told, I've done it before. So, it's been incredible. I mean, one of the most impactful experiences of my life is not even actually doing what anybody's doing, is just sitting with someone through that experience. And it's like, there's a feeling whenever someone's like really going through some shit, but you know they're going to be okay, right? Like, they're in the middle of it, but you know, as an objective observer, you can sit, observer and sit and watch them and just be, I mean, you're just there to, you're kind of a babysitter, right? It's like, you need water, you need whatever. It's just a safe environment. You're kind of holding the space. Like, there's something, like, I'm like getting emotional thinking about it. Like, there's something really, like, I've heard, I don't know, maybe parents feel this way. I'm not there yet, but like, I've heard people cry in such a deep way that, you know, it's like shifting who they are as a person. Whether that be, you know, we're not even going into the details of what that was that brought that on, but like, it's heavy and it's just like, beautiful is the only word I can really even come up with. Like, there's a beauty to that kind of personal self transformation that I think we get so caught up in, like, should this be legal and this and that and the drugs and criminals and all. It's like that whole vibe is, I mean, I know I sound like a hippie right now, but like, that whole vibe, it pollutes like what this stuff really is, you know? And it's kind of bigger and older than like this bullshit. And part of the thing that happened that I think that made these things illegal in the first place is that you kind of see through all that bullshit. And it's special for sure. So I'm excited. I hope the regulation piece, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, to be sure, about the way that it's gonna be regulated. I'm really curious about that, but I'm excited. I think one thing we got, they have mescaline on here excluding peyote, and that should be the case. Like, the peyote plant is that cactus should be exclusively reserved for and protected for Native Americans. We can get it from San Pedro. San Pedro cactus is everywhere, has mescaline in it. We can process that same way they did in the Andes Mountains of Peru. They use the San Pedro cactus. The peyote plant is for Native American indigenous people of the Americas. It should be reserved and protected for them. If your gringo hands get on that shit without permission from somebody who is a respected person in that community, you're a fucking asshole. Straight up. I'm not playing games. That is their medicine. That is their plant. That is their culture. And if you think you want to get your little white hands on that shit and go out there and be like, oh, look, I did peyote. Yeah, I'm so you, dude. This is not a joke. Same thing goes with the Sonoran desert toad. That is where 5-MeO DMT comes from. If you're not getting that stuff with permission, if you're out there, if you're like, there's, you know, if you're harming the toad, you're a piece of shit. There's a way to go about this, and that ain't the way. Like, one thing that's really frustrated me about like the psychedelic renaissance is like, you see the douchiest assholes that are like, oh, I'm so spiritual and woke now, bro. Like, let's heart to heart hug. And yeah. And like, it's like they live in this ridiculous reality that is so unrelatable. And so like, it's you just checked yourself out of doing anything meaningful in this world. Now maybe, and that's, you know what, it's harmless. That's what you want to do. But the thing that really drives me nuts, and we can get into this, is like when somebody pretends they're better than you for that. When all you've done is exploited some indigenous teachings and put them into your commercialized world and think that you're somebody special. No, you're not. You're not. you treat these things with respect and go about it the right way, you can have a conversation, right? Mushrooms are pretty plentiful. You can get those things. But when it comes to like indigenous medicines, that's for indigenous people, and you only get them with permission from them, not permission from your fucking ego. Anyways, that's how I feel about that. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be on the CIA watch list. I'm close. I'm getting there. But what we need to really solidify our place on a CIA watch list is more subscribers to this YouTube channel. So if you're into that kind of thing, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button. Leave a comment. Let's get more views on this. I really want my phones to be tapped. I want to be treated like Julian Assange. And the only way we're going to get there is if you subscribe. So do it.